everyone, welcome to Forbes Flash. Thanks for joining. Let's get started. And stick around, because later on we'll have staff writer Alex Conrad talking about the Midas list and why it's so different than the past. Spotify's IPO made headlines this week, while the company's co-founders made millions. Swedes Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzen founded the world's largest music streaming service in 2006, and now they have the fortunes to show for it. Ek, the company's CEO, has a 9.2% stake worth $2.45 billion. Lorentzen's stake is worth $3.26 billion. Sounds like music to their ears. Here's a few stories you might have missed this past week. Tesla investors breathed a sigh of relief at the company's quarterly update this week, when it was confirmed that Tesla doesn't anticipate additional fundraising in the near term. The electric car company didn't hit the quarterly production targets for its Model 3, even after revising the number a few times, but it appears to be making progress from the end of last year. Speaking of progress, MSNBC is seeing a rise in ratings as the only cable news network to grow compared to Q1 of 2017. The Rachel Maddow Show ended March as the highest-rated show in cable news, beating out Fox News' Hannity, which took second place. CNN finished a distant third. We also looked at the return of Eric Prince, whom you may remember as the notorious founder of Blackwater. He's kept a low profile since he sold the company in 2010, but is now sensing that it's the right political timing to get back in the game. Why? President Trump's appointment of certain individuals, such as John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, is good news for Prince's plan to privatize the war in Afghanistan. You'll have to read the full story to get an idea of why. Forbes Asia released their list of the 50 wealthiest people in Japan this week, and it's been a good year for the super wealthy. Thanks to a stronger yen, 80% of the billionaires on our list are richer than they were a year ago. At the top spot is Masayoshi Son, for the second year in a row, with a $21.9 billion fortune. His telecom and investing firm, SoftBank, bought a chunk of Uber earlier this year. Facebook's estimate of how many users' personal information was shared grew this week, up to 87 million. This is a larger leak than they originally disclosed, in a scandal with Cambridge Analytica that has dominated headlines for more than a week. The company also announced a series of updates to the platform that aim to restore trust with the public, investors, and regulators, but only time will tell if their efforts are enough. The story won't be leaving headlines anytime soon, though, as Mark Zuckerberg plans to testify before Congress next week about managing user data and privacy. Joining us now is Forbes' Alex Conrad to tell us about this year's Midas list.
Our 17th Midas list came out this week. We were really excited to see the list have the most international list that we've ever had and the most women on the list that we've ever had. If you're wondering what Midas is, it is the list of the top 100 venture capitalists in the world. These are the investors who back companies from Facebook to Google to more recently the Airbnbs and the Ubers of the world. Their money allows some of these tech companies to become those massive businesses that you all use today. And our list is a data-driven list that we do in partnership with TrueBridge Capital Partners. Over 100 firms submit data, we crunch it all in a model, and we come up with this data-driven sort of definitive list of the best VCs based on their portfolios. Some fun things about the list this year. As I mentioned, we have 9 women, which we have a ways to go, but it is the most ever, so we're happy to see that. We have 14 investors from China, 2 from Switzerland, 3 from the UK. We have our first resident of India on the list, as well as an Israeli, so it's really cool to see that. Because it's the last 5 years, Facebook, some older deals dropped off, which led to some real movement in the ranks. And biotech, the guys who are curing cancer with their investments, who are trying to save lives, biotech had 2 people in the top 5, Robert Nelson and Carl Gordon. So we've loved to see people return to the list who had dropped off in past years, and also some recent deals drove a lot of movement on the list. Dropbox, for example, went public recently. Their investors did very well on Midas. So I would say that the Midas list this year continues to sort of better reflect the world and sort of recognize these impactful investors who are a little bit more behind the scenes, but who are critical to the explosive growth of the companies that we do care about in tech. As part of the Midas list, we had a cover story this year that I co-wrote with Biz Carson in San Francisco. It's about a group of 36 women in venture capital, a group called All Raise. We spent weeks reporting this story behind the scenes as Allraise secretly led some of the most important initiatives about diversity in venture capital and tech in recent months. Two of the top examples would be Female Founders Office Hours and Founders for Change, a movement where over 700 startups signed up to commit to diversity in funding and hiring. So the women of Allraise let us in. We used that as an opportunity to look at how an industry, in this case venture capital, can change from the inside and can basically use capitalism and good business to drive social change. You know, where the women said, we don't want our industry motivated by fear, we want our industry motivated by greed, where it's good business to have good practices in diversity. And the response this week has been really heartening from some of the actresses of Time's Up, like Kerry Washington and Reese Witherspoon, tweeting out our story. We think this story could really be impactful in giving a template to other businesses on how to sort of be that driver of productive change, where you don't have to be negative and you don't have to be passive. You can really make changes right off the bat. Aileen Lee is the kickoff of our feature cover story. She sent the email that got everything started in 2017. Aileen had been in a VC since the dot-com bubble. She'd spent 13 years at one of the top VC firms, Kleiner Perkins, before starting her own firm, Cowboy Ventures, in 2012. Aileen saw all the headlines happening in the tech world. She saw the harassment allegations. She saw Susan Fowler speak up about Uber. And basically, Aileen thought, if we don't do something proactive now, we never will. And so she emailed this group of amazing women across a lot of the top firms in venture capital. And for the first time, all these women got together across firm, on their own time, basically took on a second job because of Aileen's urging. And she's one of a few women who both made the Midas list for their amazing track record and also were critical to this effort at Allraise. Allraise is a startup in a way, and it's a startup that's less than a year old. It can be very hard for a startup to make the cover of Forbes, let alone one that is that young. But these women have done some very impressive things, including secure $2 million in commitments from two very top-tier investors, Silicon Valley Bank, and as of press time, Allraise was in talks with Melinda Gates' personal office for an investment as well. So we think that's a great sign of validation. So this fall, the women of Allraise hope to have a very large event that brings in women from across every role of their industry to really build on the momentum of this cover story. And that's why we call them venture catalysts for the cover story. That's really what they're doing. They're catalyzing change. And I think you'll see a lot more exciting partnerships and a lot more events that are inclusive. Because one thing that these women told us is they don't want to set up a new system of gatekeepers and a new exclusive club that people have to apply to join. They really want to bring in anyone who can. And I would say if you look at Twitter, you'll see women like Anne Muraco, a Midas List member and member of Allraise, already giving examples of how pretty much anyone can get involved today.
Thanks for joining us. Tweet your feedback using #ForbesFlash, and we'll see you next week. Tune in every Friday morning, same time, same place.